sudden you begin to frown. You look around for a toilet, but Ottawa, you done spoiled.
This is called If I Told You. If I told you about my guts, would you let me in? Would you show me kindly to the throne, or tell me to keep walking? Would you ask me prying questions, then be shocked by tales of blood? Would you tell me that no access was for my own good? If I told you about digestivus, would you laugh at the name? Would you understand that it helps me cope with chronic pain? Would you raise your brows if I told you I was ill? Would you believe me in a year when I said, yes, still? If I told you I don't get better, would you help me cope? Would you let me use your bathroom when I'm at the end of my rope? Would you worry that you could catch whatever it is I've got? Would you let me in, or would you rather not? If I told you that my freedom was based on public stalls, would you help me to create doors in the place of walls? Would you fight with me so I can go safe and well, even when my gender is kind of hard to tell? If I told you that a toilet is a symbol of care, would you make sure that there's access for anyone, anywhere? Would you join me and others as we make the call? Access to public bathrooms for us all.
So we're talking today with Taylor Stocks, who is an artist, drag performer, activist, and academic living in Hull, Quebec. He is completing a PhD in education from Memorial University out of Newfoundland and is a strong voice from within and for the LGBTQI2S community. Taylor has raised awareness by sharing his story of living with the autoimmune disease Inflammatory Bowel Disease, IBD, and challenges systemic and personal stigma of living with this chronic disease.
For me, it really comes down to two major pieces. One of them is turning something that is difficult into something that is productive and beautiful and worthwhile. So for me, my struggle with bathrooms, my struggle with my ulcerative colitis, my IBD, and navigating my gender, being able to turn those moments of pain and difficulty into something that is meaningful and productive and worthwhile has been one of the main reasons why I keep on producing art that is very pointedly directed towards activism and trying to make change. And the other thing that, the other reason why I think they go so well together is because of the ability to communicate. Most people don't want to sit down and listen to a lecture on what ulcerative colitis is. They don't generally want to hear, the large statistics that go on behind things, unless you're a scientist or some kind of doctor dealing with these particular issues. However, when I write a song or a poem or create an art piece about it, it is actually inviting others into my experience. And I find it's a much easier way of communicating with people about the lived realities and experiences that they might not even cross their mind to begin with. So if you're looking to make change in the world, which I think is the basis of activism, art can play such a meaningful role in getting people on board, in helping people understand what the experiences are like and why the change needs to happen. And as we move forward as activists together and in solidarity with each other, it's those pieces of art that we can really rally around that says, oh yeah, okay, you know what? I don't really understand everything, but we understand this moment. And in this moment, we can come together and make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I appreciate social media targeted advertising for this one because it popped up on my feed a couple of times, and it was probably the third time. It's like, okay, well, I've seen this come around enough times that maybe I should really submit. So I have had ulcerative colitis for quite a few years in a very severe form, and my dad also had ulcerative colitis as well. So access to toilets has always been a thing in my life. When we were planning out road trips, we had to know where the public washrooms were in order even to leave the house. Since coming out as well, the overlap between my ulcerative colitis and my gender really does occur in bathrooms. So I have been harassed in bathrooms and told that I'm in the wrong one, both in the men's and in the women's. And when I have 30 seconds to get from, oh, I need to use the bathroom, to actually using the bathroom, there's not actually a lot of time or place for me to deal with that harassment. So I really appreciated seeing the call out, and that there was a group in the first place who cared about public washrooms, because it's a harder conversation to have. It's not something that, you know, comes about easily. So I figured that with my background in writing poetry and songs and stories, that I'd take a hack at this and submit something, trying to make meaning from my experiences with my gender and my IBD.
It was quite the hack, honestly. It was a hell of a hack. Yeah. Okay.
I think what's interesting about the last couple of years is that we all have experience now of being trapped in our houses, right? Of being unable to leave for whatever reason. What we don't talk about, even within the context of disability, are people who are trapped in our houses because we don't have access to washrooms in other places. So, you know, for me, I was hospitalized with this disease. And when I got out of the hospital, it was, well, I can't actually go very many places because, you know, I can only walk maybe 10 or 15 minutes. And within that 10 or 15-minute radius, I think there was a Tim Hortons that I could get to. So that was where I would go, was the Tim Hortons, because I knew then if I was in trouble, I would have access to a washroom. And 10 minutes was too far away from my house at that point. So, yeah, the poem itself did come out in one fell swoop, as a lot of my art does. It seems to brew in the background for a while and then present itself when it's ready, and I happened to be there to write it down. And it was definitely questions to other people, to implicate people in something that is usually very individualized, right? If you need to use a washroom, that's generally a you problem and not an anyone else problem, unless you're a kid, in which case it's probably the adults around you. But you know, otherwise, if you are an adult, then it's, well, why can't you hold it? What's the problem? It's like, well, actually, the problem is my immune system. And even if it weren't, even if we just need to use the washroom, like, why is that a big problem? So I think this poem is really about asking gentle but firm questions around toilet access and washroom use, which is a generally uncomfortable conversation to have. And I've had a lot of conversations around bathrooms over the years. I've done quite a bit of consultation around, like, well, how do you build accessible gender neutral washrooms, and washrooms that are culturally sensitive, as well as, you know, reserve gender equity. So this to me really feels like a piece of that overall activism around talking about ulcerative colitis and, you know, trans identities, and the need to be able to access safe washrooms that meet a number of needs. Yeah. It's hard for me not to speak from this very personally, but essentially, if you want full participation of everyone in society, then that includes access to public toilets as well. For instance, like, trans people tend to have a much higher rate of UTIs, bladder infections, because they are afraid of using the washrooms that are available and accessible to them. There are people like me and people with IBS as well, the much more common, not life-threatening, but still a very difficult, you know, bowel situation to be dealing with. If we want full participation from all aspects of society, then that definitely means having access to public washrooms, ones which are safe, which are regularly cleaned, which are well publicized. You know, being able to find a public washroom can just be hard in the first place. And with Ottawa being the capital, right, like, we have the ability to set precedent for the rest of Canada. Coming from St. John's, it's really hard to justify, spending a very difficult, the very small amount of money that we do have coming in for this kind of thing on access to public washrooms. But if we're able to do that within Ottawa and the capital, and able to raise awareness and able to put out art and songs and stories about this stuff, then that actually can set precedent for the rest of Canada to say, no, we here in the land of a whole lot of fresh and clean water are going to ensure that, access to public toilets and access to clean water across Canada is something that we prioritize in all of the ways, shapes, and forms that comes in. So, definitely a possibilities for solidarity with getting clean water across Canada, including in Indigenous communities, to say, like, nope, everyone deserves a place to go, and the safety with which to do so.
But Ottawa, you done spoiled it. I gotta pee. Or maybe I have to poo. Oh, it doesn't matter. I just need a toilet.